Alright, what is up? Welcome back to another video. Today's topic is going to be different. A few weeks ago, I ordered and received a number of cameras from KEH. And the thought was just to see what the deal was. Why are these cameras so cheap? What is the reasoning behind that? And upon receiving them, made a video about it. You might have seen it. If not, I'll link it right there. It's a pretty fun one. I would recommend it. One of the standouts was a Canon T70 that I purchased. If you've watched this channel for any stretch of time, you'll know that I've got a very strange place in my heart for T50s and T70s. In my mind, they are great for parts. Typically what happens with these cameras, they rely off of two AA batteries, and oftentimes what happens is people would put batteries in them and then they would move on with their lives, leaving the batteries in the camera. The camera would be in a bag. It gets put up in the attic, and then over time the batteries corrode, destroy the camera from the inside out. It's a very, very common story, and it has led me to, over the years, collect probably 20, 30 T50s, T70s, all of which don't work. In fact, I'm so used to them not working that when I see one that is working, I'm genuinely quite shocked. I'm talking working, not, yeah, I taped a paper clip to the battery door and then taped that together. I'm thinking the latch works, the contact works, everything. It's just not very common. So the T70 I got from KH, I was fully expecting to be some sort of disgusting swamp thing, but lo and behold, it wasn't. The only issue that I could see with it so far was that there was some sort of presence in the prism, which is ironic given that that is the part that I use from them. Put some batteries in it and find out that it works. And I think to myself, what a good opportunity to test out a camera that I normally don't think twice about, and that I'm sure at some point over the years, as I've been like, yeah, these things are garbage, that somebody probably watched that and was like, hey, I had one of those, my mom had one of those, my dad had one of those, and found my opinions of it quite offensive. Now, that is not really my intention. I'm not out here trying to be inflammatory for inflammatory's sake. I'm strictly just saying from my perspective, it's just always been a parts camera. So, I thought, you know what, I'll give it a fair shakedown and we'll kind of see how it plays out. So I got the results back and featured those in a video that I posted a little while ago as well. I'll link that right here. And I shot some Pro Image 100 through it. Is actually the first roll of Pro Image that I shot ever through a camera that I really don't like. And I gotta say that the results are quite phenomenal. Like, I really did enjoy that film a lot. And because of that, I'm very grateful for the T70, and it'll always hold a nice place in my heart for that reason. However, the experience of shooting the T70 wasn't necessarily my favorite. It's a very loud camera. Like, it's very intrusive, I would say. And I think it didn't help that I was shooting it in tandem with an Asahi Flex, which is just the mouse whisper of all cameras. Like, it is so discreet and quiet. Compared to that, the T70 is like, it's like a construction job site, okay? It's like a demolition crew coming through, okay? It is, subtle's not the right word to use, but it is still a very unique experience. And then the other day I was kind of cleaning stuff up around here and I came across this, and this is fascinating. It's a little booklet just kind of talking about all the features and functionalities offered by the T70, and just looking through it, it is, I love stuff like this. I really do. I always have. Just the level of care and detail put into the design. And even though this is a camera that I don't necessarily enjoy, like just seeing, you know, how much confidence and how much faith they were putting behind, because this is a level up for Canon. You know, they did the F series of cameras, and then they stepped up to the A series, the A body types, which are a little bit smaller, more compact, more electrical, more automatic functions. And then they stepped up again to this T series of cameras, which, you know, it's a lot more computational. There's a lot more going on there, and it really shows their confidence in what it's doing. And I think it just gives a really good idea of, at the time, this was cutting edge. And even like to the effect of today, like this is still, it's an impressive bit of technology for how small, relatively speaking, the body is. Like, it still does quite a bit. And I gotta say, if you pair this with like the 51.8, like I have here, it is a really nice build. Like, it's, the grip, I think, is one of the better grips overall, and it just feels like a very solid, compact thing. Now, this is a very plasticky kind of body, but it's very different from the other plastics, like the AE1 program plastics that will show every single mark that the body receives. I feel like this can kind of take a little bit more of a hit. I wouldn't want to test that theory, but it does have a little bit more robust build quality to it. I have a hard time bringing it up because there's so many different angles that I want to approach this from. One, shooting a camera that I've never shot before. It doesn't happen often. I've shot so many different kinds of cameras throughout the years, and even if I haven't shot it necessarily, I've probably shot something similar to it. I've worked on it, whatever. But the experience of shooting this was very interesting because it's something I'm not used to seeing working, let alone shooting. So the functionality was lost on me for a bit. So going through this and seeing all of the different ways you can shoot it is humbling, to say the least. But it's also like informative and helpful. And I think the other approach that I wanted to come at it from was the perspective of that I normally approach a lot of these videos on, and that is, doesn't matter what camera you use, you can take good photos. And I really still kind of hold to that point. My caveat to that has always been, if you're using a system that you feel comfortable with, or that fills you with some level of confidence, you probably will take better photos. And this, I didn't really feel lack of confidence. I think just the obtrusive nature of the sound, and I think the overall misconceptions of the camera itself lended itself to not the best pictures I've ever taken, but still, I think that I was able to achieve some really quality images. Film photography and film cameras in general right now are in like this really weird state where there's this big influx of interest. You know, back in 2020, everyone's trying to get back into it. We've got these like huge YouTubers that talk about it. And I actually saw a meme the other day. It's like some guy was walking, he was wearing a Carhartt shirt, taking photos, and it's like, fuck, I gotta change up my wardrobe. I wear a Carhartt because it's comfortable. I think it fits well. I'm not in like the best shape I've ever been, but it doesn't show that. Like, it's not like, this shirt doesn't yell, hey, fat ass. It's just like, yeah, it's cozy. You know, Action Bronson wears it, so it's good enough for me. But now I'm like, this is just too fucking basic. Anyway, you know, there's like this clamor coming back to film photography, right? And, you know, I think if I think hard enough, I can probably go through all of the different things that were like the hot cameras, right? Like the big ones. You know, it starts out with like AE1. That's the big one. You got to get the AE1. And then there was like this big craze for the Pentax 6.7. That was like the next big one. And now it seems like it's the RB 6.7, which is a great camera. And like, those are all fine cameras in their own right. But there's this clamor behind film photography. There's this idea behind what components are required to make a good image, to make something that's interesting, to make something that's compelling, all of these things. And so much of that's kind of tied into this identity of the camera you have, your personality, all this stuff. But I think that there is a distinct lack of personality for the cameras themselves. And that's where something like this, I think, really comes into play, because this is like the marketing material. This is the approach that the company, Canon in this case, had for the camera. They're excited about it. They're sharing, hey, look at all these things it can do. Look at all these lenses we now have with it that will pair nicely with it. Look at all this functionality. And literally there's a whole thing, attention to detail throughout. And it goes through all of these little nuanced features of this camera. It has the soft shutter release, which is nice. Comfortable grip, I mentioned that. Has a nice LCD data panel, which honestly, I've seen a lot of LCD bleed in my time, primarily in the Minolta Maxim series, a lot of LCD bleed there. I've very rarely, I think, seen a T70 bleed. Definitely T50, but I don't think I've seen a T70 bleed. I could be wrong, but this one's clean. Most of the ones I own, I think, are clean, which that's kind of a nice feature. There's just all of these little elements to it, and it shows a picture of the shutter system that it has, which is a really advanced shutter for the time. Honestly, also the film rewind on this I thought was really nice. I think it does a really good job, and that's kind of a bizarre thing to mention, but for Canon, I think this was their second model that had kind of the auto rewind system, their second SLR model, I should say, but their second SLR model that has the motorized rewind. And I thought it did a great job. It's, again, a little bit loud, but it's very fast for what it is. And I don't know, it's a minor detail, but something I just wanted to, as someone who never shot with one, it did stick out to me. It's this is kind of nice. It's easy. It almost feels like there's this very washed out remnant of film camera culture remaining. To another extent, I recently got a Nikon EM, and this is a camera that I talked about in the videos being one that I really didn't care for too much. And a lot of my conception on that has been that they've usually broken and just again, kind of a waste of time to a degree. But after getting it, seeing that it worked, and then also going through the little manual that it came with, I was filled with excitement to shoot with it, because it broadened my horizons enough to see hey, Nikon did put effort behind this, which is cool, and Nikon knew its audience, which is cool. And my perspective of film cameras has always been from the repair component, from the resale component. The Nikon EM is not really repairable, and it's not really worth trying to resell, so in my mind, garbage. The T50, T70 series, in my mind, they're usually not working, but the prisms are good for K1000s, and those will resell well, so the T70 and T50 have value in that side of things. And I think that the same can be said for the modern film photography community, and that whole culture of film photography has been diluted to, what's popular on YouTube, what's going to get me views if I shoot with it and put the hashtag in it, what's going to look cool in my bag, what's going to look cool in the photo that I take of whatever, what's going to look cool in the reel, what's going to and it's not all that surface level. There's some people that actually value the camera they're using, the format they're shooting, and so on and so forth. So I'm not trying to diminish it solely to that, but I think the predominant culture has kind of become, what's the popular thing. And I'm prone to that as well. I'm not saying that I'm above that, but I think this T70 really kind of opened my eyes to the idea that each one of these cameras, even the ones I don't like, there was a lot of time and money put into the development of that, put into the research of how can we push this barrier? How can we reach this audience member? How can we develop this brand further? How can we continue to push that envelope? And ultimately, what is the goal? And some could say that the goal ultimately was to create digital photography, because that's where we're at now, and it's so accessible for so many people. Really, it's only the people that are reverting back to film for all of the existential reasons. I think it's hard sometimes to take a step back from whatever culture, whatever hobby, whatever you're immersed in at that time, and just have a more general appreciation for stuff. Okay. I think it's hard because, we're looking at these things through the modern lens, the modern zeitgeist, and what is value, what is not, determined by whatever voices are out there, whether that's me talking about the T50, the T70 as good parts, or whether that's any other person you listen to, whether it be someone on YouTube, someone in your life, a family member, a friend, whomever. If anyone in your life is interested in film photography and giving you their opinion, all those things have some level of weight to it. And I think as I kind of progress in this whatever journey it is of making videos, talking about stuff, I think I just want to be a little bit more conscious of the things I say, the weight that carries, and also just not really get caught up in whatever trend is really going on at that time. I think that's just bound to happen because, take something such as like the Pentax 17. I made a bunch of videos about that because they did well, and I wanted to hop on that and make some money, and I did, and it was great and all that. But I don't want that to be the central focus of this channel. I want to ultimately talk about whatever, and then hopefully share some sort of information that is informative or enjoyable to the people watching. And I think something like the T70, again, despite the nature in which I shot it, which was very quickly and kind of point and shoot-esque, was just kind of ripping through the roll, having fun with it, which I was able to do because Pro Image 100 is such a great film and super affordable. But ultimately, despite the way in which I shot it, I think it really did open up my perspective quite a bit on what really matters. And the things that ultimately matter is whatever matters to you. I can talk on this channel every day about what I like and what I don't like, and this is good or this is bad, and that's ultimately me. That's just my opinion. And again, a lot of that is based on things that most people don't care about. Like, most people that are talking about film photography aren't talking about how repairable is this camera? Like, are the parts valuable in other cameras? Like, what is the essence that they're looking for is completely different than what I'm looking for. So who's right, who's wrong, it doesn't really matter too much. Longevity of a camera system is an important factor of it. But you also might find that you don't like shooting with an ME Super, you don't like shooting with a Spotmatic, you don't like shooting with the Nikon F3 or whatever camera I'm talking about at the time. And you probably honestly won't like shooting with a Canon T70. You just won't. It's not a great camera, okay? There are better cameras. But I think at the end of the day, the abstract ideology here is that regardless of my opinions and as they've grown over time, it's still a perfectly usable camera if you have one that is working. And you can still take images with it that you might even enjoy. But if you get caught up in what I'm saying or what anyone else on YouTube, Instagram, I don't know, any of the other social medias, if you get caught up in what they're saying and you're constantly trying to jump trends and get on top of stuff, you're going to spend so much money and you're not going to take any photos because you're going to be constantly striving after this thing that doesn't really exist. I think you just have to find something that brings that you enjoy using, something that you feel compelled to use on a daily basis, and use it. So, and yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say regarding the Canon T70 and the more abstract lesson of experience there. Over 20 minutes of talking about a Canon T70, and I didn't even tear it apart. I mean, who would have thought? But yeah, thank you for watching. Make sure to like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel, join the channel as well if you like what I do and you want to support it. Appreciate all of it, and I'll catch you on the next one.